And I will just say that, the city's been working pretty tirelessly to try to set this up so that we could have virtual public meetings and have them work very similar to the way we did our public meetings in person, and to which we hope to get back to as soon as it's safe to do so. But for the interim, in the meantime, we're going to be doing public meetings virtually like this. I'm not sure for how long at this point, but we'll let everybody know when the time comes that we're going to transition back if we do. And we do post the properties in the same way that we did before. We do post online so that everybody knows when the virtual meetings are and how to log in. And also, I'll go through some meeting protocol information that we'll talk about some of the ways that we're going to conduct this meeting. And I just lost my screen sharing. Bear with me for a moment. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to the chairman to introduce the meeting.
Thank you, Dennis. And welcome everyone to a pretty historic day, the first virtual meeting of the VAR. We even beat VARL to that title. Today is May 28th. It's the VAR small virtual meeting. My name is Jay Claypool. I'm going to chair today's meeting. I'm going to read the order of the meeting and the instructions for the meeting protocol. And these are going to be the same rules as our live meetings. Dennis will follow up with a few details on the virtual details and protocol. With us this afternoon is a full complement of board members: Bill Huey, Fillmore Wilson, Julia Martin, and Glenn Gardner. With us is city staff, city architect Dennis Dowd and Alex Howell. The order of the meeting is as follows. Staff will introduce the project, after which time the applicant will have a 10-minute period of time in which to present, and that can be the applicant and any and all people speaking on behalf of the applicant. As always, and particularly in virtual world, it's important that everyone states their name before speaking. After the applicant presentation period, we'll then enter into public comment period. Same as always, we try to limit the aggregate public comment period to 10 minutes. Again, please state your name clearly for the record. Then we will hear from city staff as to its comments and recommendations. And after the applicant has now heard from the public and from staff, the applicant has an opportunity to respond, to clarify any things that need to be clarified, to address the comments that have been made. It's not an opportunity to sort of reopen the presentation. The floor at that point closes, and the board will discuss the matter and ultimately vote. There was one item on the originally published agenda that has been deferred. That is 168 Trad Street. We're not going to hear that today. Still, please turn off your cell phones. You probably have many other noise-making devices around you. Turn those off as well, please. And limit your comments to architecture. Our purview hasn't changed even if we're in the virtual world. That's our purview, and that's what we'd like to hear and decide upon. So Dennis, I'll turn it back over to you for some Zoom meeting protocol instructions.
All right, thank you, Jay. Yeah, to just mention some of the ways that we want to conduct the meeting. Staff will control the PowerPoint presentation, and that includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with the submittal requirements. Applicants simply need to ask staff to advance to the next slide during your presentation. Applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their name whenever speaking. Please try to remember to do that. I know it's difficult sometimes to remember, but we may ask you if you don't. During the public comment period, the applicant and all applicant team members and the public have been required to pre-register and submit any documents in advance of the meeting. The public has also been required to indicate the project they wish to comment on. Those members of the public that have pre-registered will be called on in order by project. And members of the public that speak are encouraged to remain in the meeting for the completion of the item they have commented on. And finally, members of the public that speak are required to give their name and address. Regarding the board members should open the participants panel so that you can raise your hand when necessary if for some reason you're muted by the host. Board members will be polled by the chair for comments and for their vote on a motion. And each member, when voting, should respond yay in favor or nay not in favor. And please remember to do that because yay and nay sound a lot alike, and we just want to be sure that we're clear how you're voting. The chairman will then reread the motion verbatim, and the board member making the motion should correct the chairman if he's not reread the motion accurately. If a board member needs to recuse, he will be temporarily removed from the meeting and placed back in the meeting at the start of the next agenda item. And then as we have done even in our in-person meetings, we will issue meeting results, including staff comments and the board motion to the applicant following the meeting. Results will also be posted on the city website at www.charleston-sc.gov/BAR. And then for additional information, you can contact BAR at charleston-sc.gov or visit the city's website /BAR. And finally, I'll mention that these proceedings are being recorded, and I'll ask Alex if you can confirm that we are currently recording.
We are recording.
Alex, your mic off.
We're recording. Can you hear me? We're recording.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then the first item is 119 Fishburne, requesting approval to demolish historic clapboard siding. This is a Category 3 project on the west side, circa 1920, in the Historic Materials Demo District. Alex, can you tell me who the applicant is for this item?
The applicant is Brett Morris.
Okay, and if you would unmute and allow Mr. Morris to speak. Once I conclude the introduction. So this is some existing site photos. This is the property in question right here. A closer up view of it from Fishburne. And yet another view of another angle. Here we're looking east on Fishburne Street and looking west on Fishburne. And at this point, I'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation, if you could allow them to speak, Alex.
So I will be promoting Brett Morris, and I believe the owner of the property, Catherine Xenia. Sorry if I butchered your name.
I hear some talk in the background. Does somebody have a TV on, or is that in the office, Alex?
That's probably me. I'll stay muted.
Okay. Mr. Morris, are you with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So do you guys have a PowerPoint that I'm following along? Okay. So I didn't prepare really a formal presentation to go along with this PowerPoint. I thought that I was just sending pictures to Kim. But if we just kind of go through it. So the scope of work is, this is a re-side, and we're wanting to go with hardy siding. She had vinyl siding on the home, and just like several other jobs we've done in the vicinity, our normal scope is to demo the existing vinyl and inspect what's underneath, which we've done. And upon inspection, we just found a lot of rotted areas that were missing siding completely, cracks, flashing not to code. There's no water vapor behind it. There's no sheathing behind the wood siding. And the goal is to go back with fiber cement, factory painted hardy. And we've done several jobs like this in the area, and we've never been denied before, so we never really got an explanation why. So if we knew that, I can kind of go further.
Okay, and I'll remind the board that this is in an area for demolition only, so demolition of the siding is the only thing we're considering tonight.
Gotcha. So it's just the siding, the trim, any historic trim, the columns, the soffit fascia, crown, window trim, all of that's in good shape, and we plan to keep that. It's just the lap siding that we're looking to demo. And it's got lead paint. We plan to follow all the lead safe EPA procedures. And there's 20 or so pictures in this slideshow. That's kind of our scope of work there, but that's pretty much what I just explained.
Okay.
New lap siding and corner boards, but all other trim to remain as is. And the real goal of this is to get it watertight, without flashing, moisture barrier, sheathing. We've had it exposed for a couple of months now, so we're just trying to figure out what we need to do to get it approved.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Board, do you have any questions? I do actually have one of staff. Dennis, is the question here as to demolition of the original siding, or is there also some sort of like after the fact demolition of the vinyl siding that overlaid the original siding?
No, it's just demolition of the siding.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already done the vinyl. We've already removed the vinyl.
Yeah, we approved that at staff.
Right.
Okay. Board questions?
I do have one question, Bill Huey. I was noticing from the pictures, it also looked like there is maybe some vinyl ceilings on the porches. Were you going to be removing those as well?
Not at this time. Those are in good shape. We were just going to leave that as is for now.
Okay, thank you.
Fillmore Wilson, I had a question of Mr. Morris. If you were to remove the siding, and I was trying to read your list, but the print was a little small on my computer. Did you intend to sheathe the building in plywood?
Yes, anywhere where there's not existing sheathing, we're planning on going back with new. We won't know for sure what the situation is until we get it all off, but from what I've seen, it does not look like there's sheathing behind it in the areas that I could see.
Yeah, I would suspect that there is not. And how do you deal with the loss of reveal if you're going to try to keep the window trim?
The loss of reveal?
Yeah, because you're going to be
You're
going to be
adding
increasing the wall thickness by ½ an inch. Now your hardy's going to be a little. If you went back with hardy, it might be a little thinner, but I think you're going to change the reveals at the corners and the windows.
Gotcha. Yeah, it does look like there's not a lot of room there. We may have to, would we be allowed to go back with new trim? If we match the existing profile, it looks like a 4-inch picture frame with a historic sill.
Well, this is, again, only in an area of demolition. So the board doesn't have any purview over what happens after that.
Okay. Well, hardy manufacturing specs will allow you to put just a moisture barrier and the siding down. So we definitely would not want the siding to protrude out any further than that window trim. So if that's what we had to do, that's what we would do.
Are there any other board questions right now?
I have a question, Jay, if I may. Dennis Stout here. Have the windows already been replaced and was that approved?
Are you asking me?
Yes, sir.
So looking at this particular window right here, that looks like a newer vinyl window. The homeowner may have more insight to that, but most of the windows on the house are the original. You can see those at the bottom there for sure. Maybe if you scroll back a few more pictures to some of the close-ups, we might be like that trim looked really new on that one. That looks like it has grids between the glass, so that's got to be
Vinyl, yeah.
Yeah. That one, you can see the SDL grid, so that's probably an older window. But they're in better, well, those are wood, but they're in excellent shape.
Yeah. So some of the windows have been replaced with vinyl.
I saw one that looked like it had.
Hi, this is Catherine Zania, the homeowner at 119 Fishburne. When I purchased the home, the vinyl windows were there prior to my purchase. And I did ask about it from the real estate broker. And apparently they said, because it's on the driveway side and not front facing the vinyl, they went with vinyl for that reason.
Okay, thank you.
Dennis, board members, do you all have any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to public comment. Is there any, I have a letter from a neighbor. I'll read after any live public comment. Is there any live public comment?
Alex, if you could, I'm not looking at the list. If you have it and you can identify who is to speak on this particular project, if you could allow them to speak.
We have two speakers who signed up to speak on this item. I will allow April Wood to speak first, and I'm going to give her the ability to speak, and then April, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is April Wood, Historic Charleston Foundation. Historic Charleston Foundation is opposed to this request to demolish the historic wood siding at 119 Fishburne. This is a Category 3 building that is largely intact and contributes to the historic district. The BAR follows the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation and the Charleston standards in evaluating requests for alteration on historic buildings. Both standards state that deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and materials. The request for wholesale demolition of historic wood clapboard siding does not meet the standards. The siding should be repaired where possible. Where existing wood siding does require replacement, it should be replaced in kind. Alternate materials such as hardy plank are not appropriate on historic buildings in the historic district. Historic Charleston Foundation recommends denial of this application. Thank you.
Okay, Alex.
The
You have
next
another?
person who signed up to speak is Aaron Minigan. And Aaron, I am giving you the ability to speak, and you can unmute yourself.
Thanks, Alex. This is Erin Minigan with the Preservation Society of Charleston. We agree with Historic Charleston Foundation. The Secretary of the Interior Standards state historic material should only be replaced when beyond repair. That's a basic tenet of best preservation practices. Photographs provided of 119 Fishburne indicate the siding is largely in good, repairable condition and should only be selectively replaced with in-kind materials. Hardy plank siding is a contemporary material that is inappropriate for historic buildings. So we urge the board to deny this application for demolition of historic siding, requiring in-kind replacement only where necessary. Thank you.
Okay, Alex, are there any other live public comments?
Those are the only two.
Okay, we received a letter from a neighbor, Randy Mchugh, home address 148 Fishburne, who writes that It's come to his attention that the owner has requested to remove the historic wood siding at 119 Fishburne. I live at 148 Fishburne, and have probably 95% of my home's original wood siding built circa 1910 to 1915. Unless the siding at 119 Fishburne is rotten or damaged by termites, I see no reason that it should be removed. I would hope the BARS would reject this request. Thank you. Okay, so if we have no other public comment, now we go to staff and its recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Dennis Dowd. Staff has reviewed this request at a staff level and denied the request to remove the historic siding from the house. We agree with all of the points made by the preservation groups. We're of the opinion that the siding is in very good condition after being covered in vinyl siding for many years. This type of wood is strong, durable, and cannot be replaced by today's modern siding. We feel that the removal of such historic fabric is detrimental to the property and the street, which has already been seen so much fabric hastily removed in favor of a material that is less durable than the historic siding. There may be a need to replace specific boards and trim if they are compromised to the extent that it cannot be repaired. Staff will need to visit the site to review the extent of selected replacement with the contractor before a replacement can take place. In preparation for that, photographs or drawings of each elevation must be submitted with areas highlighted that the applicant or their contractor believes need to be replaced as the basis for this field review. We're recommending denial of total siding replacement with a condition of a field visit for selective replacement as noted.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morris or Ms. Zenya, you have a chance before the board deliberates to clarify any issues raised in public comment or staff recommendations. So yeah,
this is Alex Howe with BAR staff. Can I just interject something?
Sure.
I think we lost Bill Huey. I don't think he's in our panelist panel. And I don't see him in attendees.
Let's wait a minute to see if he'll rejoin us.
Dennis, could you go to full screen view? Thanks.
Sure. Let me try to text him and see if I can get him back in.
He just texted me and said he's trying to log back in.
Jay?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, and it's probably something to do with my setup, but I don't know if there's any way you can adjust yours, or if it's just me, I'll just figure it out.
What about everybody else?
I could hear you
Now,
clearly.
actually,
Jay.
maybe you're a little closer.
Yeah, I could hear you okay.
I think I can hear you. It's Fillmore. I can hear you pretty well.
Okay.
couple of times it faded out a little bit. Your voice faded out a little bit, but overall, I hear you pretty well.
Yeah, I can hear you also.
Thank you, your phones, Dennis.
Dennis Fillmore.
Yes, Fillmore.
While we're waiting on Bill, I'm going to step away for a minute. I just realized my puppies are asleep and I'm afraid they're going to wake up and cause a ruckus, and I'm going to go ahead and let them outdoors.
Okay, Alex, if
I
you
forgot they were in the house. Okay.
Alex, if you mute Fillmore for us, please.
Yeah.
Dennis, did Bill reply to you? He texted me and said he was trying to log back in.
He did not.
I'm watching to see if
I
he
also
shows up
tried
at
to-
attendees.
I tried to call him also, and he didn't answer. I'll try and call him again. Bill,
Yes.
are you having trouble getting back in?
Yeah, I'm having trouble getting back in. Hang on. It's a connection thing. I'm trying to log on here. Let me see if I can. Got a good connection, so let me try again. I apologize.
It's all right.
1 second.
Well, this is to be expected for our first meeting, and may not have anything to do with the first meeting if he's lost his internet connection. Hey, Bill,
Yes.
if you can't reconnect, are you having trouble with your internet connection?
It's just spooling. I'm trying to get to Zoom. Yeah, it says unable to connect to Zoom. Let me try to see if I can just get into Google or one of the other things just to make sure it's not my internet connection. It's my daughter's just came home and they'll blaze my internet. I'm gonna try to reconnect to Wi-Fi here and see if I can do it this way.
I was going to say, if you can't, you could call in,
Okay.
but we would prefer if you could join via Zoom so you're visible.
Yes. Okay. Let me try again here. I'm gonna see if I can. I'm gonna try to get there through the link off of the email rather than through the Zoom.
Yes.
And, let me try that link one more time. Okay, I'm back in Gmail, so I think I'm back online. Hopefully this link will get me right in just 1 second. I
Okay.
apologize.
All right.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. I may need to type in. I don't know why I do. You did give a link.
Yeah, there's a link in the email invite.
Okay. Let me try that one more fine. I apologize for all this. Oh man, let's see here. You sent actually an email today that had the link as well. Here it is. Oh, wait a minute. Let me make sure I'm the right one. Yes. Okay. Here we go. All right. Hopefully this will do it. This opens in US. Connecting. Okay. Hopefully this will work, Dennis. Okay. I'm back in.
You see him, Alex?
Yes,
I'm back
he
in.
came back in.
Let's see. Join with audio.
All right, you're gonna have to promote him.
Or no, I mean as a panelist.
Oh, as panelist. Okay.
Uh,
I don't see him. Do you have to start your video, Bill?
it's still connected.
Okay. Yeah. Start video. Yes.
Hey.
There he is.
Hang on, Dennis.
Is he in, Alex? I don't see him.
I see him.
Okay. All right. So sorry for that delay, technical glitch. Jay, you want to take it away?
Yes. So we left off, Ms. Inya or Mr. Morris, if you wanted to respond to public comment or to staff comments, you may.
May I ask if Catherine could give her final thoughts before I give mine?
Sure.
Hi, Catherine Zania, homeowner at 119 Fishburne. I purchased this home just under a year ago, and initially was under the impression and saw that it was not in the historic district. So that's my number one question. I thought Fishburne was just on the outside of the district. And second, I don't know if you've had a chance to go back over to the house in the last 3 months since those photos were originally taken, but the current siding is in really poor shape. I would imagine most of it is going to need to be replaced. And even those boards that don't need to replace, I'm very concerned about the longevity of the home without any kind of water vapor barrier. Given the climate down here in Charleston, I'd like to preserve the integrity of the home for as long as possible and as cost efficiently as possible. And those are my two questions.
And Mr. Morris, did you want to add anything?
Somebody mentioned that removing the existing siding would be detrimental to the historic integrity of the home, but I guess I'd argue that it'd be more detrimental to the structure and the framing for it not to have the proper flashing moisture barrier behind it. So that's where I am with that.
Okay, thank you both.
Jay, if I could respond to the question about purview.
Sure, I was going to go ahead.
Ms. Zania, the BAR does not have purview, as I mentioned before, over changes to the structure, or additions to the structure, but they do have purview in this area over demolition. And in 2017, we modified the ordinance and updated the definition of demolition to include demolition of significant historic materials like siding, windows, doors, chimneys, roofing, foundation, things like that. So you are under BAR purview for demolition only in this area.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dennis. So at this point, the floor is closed and the board is in deliberation, discussion, and eventually a vote. So board discussion.
Okay, this is Julia Martin, and I agree with staff's comments on this project. I went and looked at the siding, and I just don't see that removal and replacement is justified. And for the benefit of the owner, I would just say that there's real value, even economic value, over the long term in preserving that historic material. So I agree it should just be patched and replaced in kind only as warranted. I think it would be great for staff to review that extent.
Glenn Gardner, I had a look as well, and I echo what Julia has said. I know to the eye it looks like it's in pretty poor condition, but I think there's a lot more siding there that's viable than it may look like. I think the peeling paint is relatively deceiving, and you know, for the health or the longevity of the house, just, you know, remember it's been there for 100 years without sheathing and without a vapor barrier, and these houses were intended to breathe and not be you know, not be a Ziploc bag that's locked up tight.
Fillmore, I would echo what my fellow board members are saying. I was by the house this morning, and
Fillmore, we're getting a big echo. Is everybody else hearing that?
Yes.
Yes,
yeah, I'm getting it from other people as well. Now,
likewise.
I think it
better.
stopped. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would echo what my fellow board members said. I was by the house this morning and walked around it and took a pretty good look. I went by early, and the bulk of the siding, I think, is completely salvageable, and that siding provides more lateral stability than hardy plank over simple frame wood. So I think it's actually, without sheathing the house, it's stronger with that siding than with hardy plank. And if there's some flashing details missing, they could be incorporated in the repair process. So I have every confidence that that siding will protect that house if properly repaired and maintained for another 100 years. So I agree with staff.
This is Bill Huey. I also agree with staff. I do have one question of staff via one of the applicant's comments. I believe Mr. Morris stated that he may be able to install some form of a barrier system without sheathing. I guess I did want to qualify that. The question there being, within the realm of repairing the siding, would it be an option for the owner to remove and strip the siding and then replace it where it came from, or are we talking about repairing in place? That's kind of a question.
Okay.
And another point to that, I'm sorry, Dennis, is I know that when the boards are caulked at the bottoms, it often creates a lot of problems. And over time, that does seem to happen with most painters, that they'll come along and seal the bottom of these clapboard boards with caulk. And that's where some of the issues of peeling and other potential issues have manifested. I do know that. So just asking that question about potentially taking off, stripping, cleaning, and then reinstalling in place with potentially maybe a backup vapor barrier, not sheathing.
So you're asking me, Bill, about that at staff?
Yeah, and it's more of a procedural question about within the realm of talking of repair, is the idea of repairing it on the wall, or potentially being able to take it down, strip it, and then reinstall it? That's the question.
Well, I would not recommend doing that because it is very difficult to remove siding like this and have it go back in any shape that it's currently in. And that is contrary to the Secretary of Interior standards. Also, we're recommending selective replacement of boards that clearly are, beyond the point of being able to be saved, but that would be very selective, boards and trim. And that would be based on a field review with staff. But I would not support the notion of taking all the siding off and putting it back on. It just doesn't work.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, and I I believe that is the correct methodology to this as well. So I do concur with staff's comments and the comments of the other board members.
I could make a motion if that's okay.
Please, Julia.
I will move for denial of total siding replacement with the condition of a field visit for selective replacement as noted.
Is there a second to Julia's motion?
Second, Fillmore Wilson, second.
Okay, so the motion is for denial of total siding replacement with a condition that a field visit for selective replacement be permissible as noted. All in favor? Please, I'll call the roll. Please again, vote and say either in favor or not in favor. Julia Martin,
Yay, in favor?
Fillmore Wilson,
Yay, in favor.
Bill Huey,
Yay, in favor.
Glenn Gardner.
Yay, in favor.
The chair votes yay in favor. So the motion is denied. The request is denied. The next agenda item is 166 Wentworth Street.
Okay. This is a request for conceptual approval for partial demolition of a pre-1911 rear kitchen addition and new construction of a kitchen addition and elevator. It's a Category 2 structure in Charleston Village in the Olden Historic District. Pre-1911 and 1809, the original house 1809, the addition pre-1911. So this is the location of the property. We've seen this project before here, just east of Ashley Avenue on Wentworth. Some existing site photos of the existing house. And a view of the location of the addition here from the street. Looking west here on Wentworth Street, and then looking east on Wentworth. The previous motion was deferral for more information, partial demolition of the rear addition on January of this year. Previous board comments, one board member said would have to have new evidence or change from what was previously presented. Another board member said from the last review, the applicant is now willing to reuse the foundation and SHPO is okay with the demo, and that was a question. Are these two issues enough to change a prior board motion? Another question. We have to make a determination that enough has changed to alter a prior board motion. Maybe with a deferral, the applicant could get clarification as to whether SHPO is supportive of the demolition. And a third board member said, I want to make sure that we don't just kick the can down the road. We all agree that this is a well-built addition. And with that, I will turn it over to the applicant for their presentation. Alex, if you could allow the applicant to speak, please.
I'm promoting Shelley Clark Glidewell to a panelist, as well as John Massillon. All right, Shelley, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, one comment I want to make about the board questions that Dennis just read. Those were for the proposal we made back for full demolition. And that was in, I can't remember which month that was, if it was November of 2019. And then because we presented in February 27th with a partial demolition and not full demolition. And these questions were asked of that previous meeting. I don't know if that makes a difference, but I can present what I want to present and then we can go from there.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to retrieve the more current comments if that's the case.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we can go to the second sheet. Move forward.
Yeah. Bear with me for a moment. Okay.
Okay, what I did here was we did a restudy of our previous February 27th presentation. We had some people make, some board members make a suggestion of pulling the elevator in, yes, correct, and try to make it work within that, to make it as a hyphen. And what happened is we had problems with the design in a couple areas, and the owner was not happy with like the location of where we put the, we had to move the powder room so that and it was alongside of the rear piazza window, which they didn't really want to have happen, mainly because it would not be very nice. And they also didn't want it next to the dining room, which is up in the top right there, yes. And then one thing that also happened is that when we brought the, you know, it's a very narrow, we already have that brick hyphen there that's off of the original 1809 building, and this brick hyphen that comes off where the kitchen is now is from like the 1830s. And then we now have to reduce down even further, and that is where the elevator is now. And what happens is it just squeezes down the entrance into this new kitchen. And so the owners were not happy with that squeeze down effect of coming into their kitchen. And then if you, one other thing that they wanted more counter space in the kitchen. I did show more counter space in the butler's pantry, but they wanted it to be in the kitchen. And it did really squeeze down the kitchen a lot, and actually doesn't seem very large when you look at the original one that we did have off to the right there. If we go to the second floor, what it does, the elevator, one of the recommendations was that we look at moving the bedroom from that 1830s hyphen to the rear piazza addition, which we did do, and it did seem to work a lot better. We were able to put even put in a closet, and then they are really, one of their biggest things is to get a true handicap bathroom, because they actually have a relative who is in a wheelchair. They definitely need to have the elevator and the handicap bathroom. And he has his mother is old and could possibly come and move there, and they would definitely need, again, it's something they truly need. And she actually has restless leg syndrome. So again, this is something they need. And right now I can only fit in a 4'2" radius for a handicap. So we really want to get that 5 feet in there. And also what happens is it reduces down the laundry room to a very small laundry room, which is right above that handicap bathroom. And so it just, because of the elevator being pushed over to the left, we had to move all those the walls over so that we could get, you know, access to the elevator. So that's what pushed all those down. I think the next, I don't think there's any difference in the next thing. We didn't have any changes there. It just shows you, I think it does show you where the that the elevator is pulled away from the house. Now, so we are showing that basically to show you that we did the study and that we didn't ignore it. I just want you to make sure that you know that. And so our clients didn't want to build this building in this addition and put all this money into it if it didn't meet their requirements. So we went back and looked again. I have to tell you that I'm serious, I've done 16 options for this little teeny kitchen. So we've been through a lot here. So this is the site plan and the ground floor. We have the existing site plan. We have the previous site plan where we showed the elevator next to the building. And then we have our proposed site plan where we create a hyphen, a 3'6" hyphen here, and pull the elevator away from the building. This is the existing, you can go on to the existing foundation, ground floor, and this is the proposed. It's showing next to the previous submittal, and we are pulling it away. The elevator is pulled away from the building. And we are also, as you can see in the yellow, we are keeping as much as we can of that historic building. We're keeping the foundation, the original foundation. There are there's concrete block foundation that they've put underneath there that we'll remove and make sure that we have the correct structural underneath there. And we are keeping part of the wall, the historic wall of the wood building, and extending onto that. And of course, the historic masonry wall is to remain. And one of the big things is we don't feel we should go past that historic wall. And they really don't want to go past the historic wall. And so that's why we keep stopping it at the location we're stopping at. Okay. Okay, there we go. Now we've got, this is the existing this is all the existing plans, first, second, and third floor plans. Go to the next. Here we are, and what we've done is we have an existing opening in the from the butler's pantry to the new addition, and they're trying to keep that use that existing opening. They don't want, because when we put if we put the elevator in that location, we couldn't even use that existing opening, and we'd have to take out even more brick, which we're trying to limit. And I would think historically everybody would want us to do that also. So what we did is, pulled out the building 3.5 feet, created glass hyphen, and then it opened up the space a lot more than being squeezed down. And then we were able to provide the owners with the counters and also pull the elevator away from the building, and still open it up so that it's open up the kitchen so that it just feels more like a kitchen from 2020. The other thing is we are requesting that that we move our stair that right now is on the east side of the rear piazza. I don't know if we can point to that where it was originally, which is basically, originally it was on to the left, and I point that right there, yes. And then we're asking to move it over to the right. And interesting enough, the owner actually has the actual baluster, and we have a photograph of it in our photographs of that was literally just cut out of that railing, and it still has the top rail, bottom rail, and all the balusters on it, so that we could just literally stick it back into place and restore that railing, and then open up a new opening. And we just kind of, what they're trying to do is to come down that piazza and go to the screen porch, and then just see straight down into they have a very large yard, and they wanted to look down into that, straight down into that as they were going down the piazza. Yes, the second floor, again, we've pulled it away from the elevator away from the building. We were able to make a much larger, you're able to come into like an elevator hallway there, and then literally kind of make a little suite with the bathroom and the bedroom. And they were actually able to make that laundry come off that elevator hall, and have access downstairs to come up and get access to that relatively quickly, and then still access it from the second floor. But they really like this design because it meets all their program requirements. Again, I'm showing that the yellow is the item, the roof to remain. The blue is the area that's to be removed. And do you guys have, and I'm gonna click something out here. I don't know if it's just on mine. There we go. And this is just basically showing the roof line up above that we're not touching the rear piazza, and that where the HVAC units are going to be moved to. And we can go to the next one. This is the existing west elevation showing the demolition. The yellow is the what we're going to keep, and the blue is what we're going to remove. And basically we are removing the west elevation of the addition and the rear elevation of the addition. And this shows our new design, which you can see above on the top. We had the elevator tower pushed up against the rear piazza, and now we've pulled it away with the 3.5 foot glass hyphen. One suggestion that the preservation groups have requested is that we might make that hyphen a flat roof to make it more of a definition between the two. So that was, instead of extending the gable roof over to the brick hyphen, to make that flat. And we don't have a problem with that. We have no problem with that. And I did make the hyphen contemporary, and so it's all glass. The rear, again, the rear portion of the addition is being removed. We're going to keep the roof. We'll support the roof with the new structure. And then you can see that historic wall and how far it goes up, and that is to remain. We go to, yeah. And our previous rear elevation had some doors going out to it, and had like a little railing that they had along the windows and the doors. And we've taken that out completely, and have now just used windows, tall windows with some transoms at the top. And we have moved so there's no door at the rear for storage at the ground floor, and we've only put it on the west elevation. And this is the east elevation. Again, we're saving as much as we can. We've got the portion where the two-story addition goes up that is going to be removed, the blue area, correct. And then we have, again, our glass hyphen. We do have it in line with the two-story addition.
Excuse me, Shelley. Mr. Chairman, that's the timer going, just to let you know.
Okay, almost done. And we, again, it would be a flat roof there. If that's what the direction we'd like to take, that's fine. Well, I was going on about saying that the glass hyphen was in line with the wood addition, two-story addition, mainly because we have that historic wall, and flashing up to that. If I pulled it in any farther, it would create a gap, and it just wouldn't be something that we could maintain. And then we've added on at the rear, again, it just goes as far as the rear of the addition. It goes as far as that historic wall. You can see the historic wall there. And one thing we'll have to do if we do get this glass hyphen is go to the building department to get a variance, because we will be over the amount of glass we can have on that side. So I think that, and I think they also asked about if we could make a smaller oven vent, and we can, and it's basically by the side of the oven that we choose, that we can see about making that smaller. I would definitely want to make it as small as possible, so that's not a problem. Okay, the next, what next one is.
That's it.
Okay, and then we had some photographs. I don't know if you have them, access to them, because we can see where the
Just these photographs, Shelley.
okay, I had submitted photographs showing the addition at the rear, and things that the board I think have already seen, but I also included the new photograph was of the rear piazza railing, just to show you that it did exist and it was in one piece.
Was that part of your PDF that we're looking at now?
I don't I think I had it as a separate PDF.
Yeah, that's why it didn't get in here.
Oh,
The submittal requirements require one PDF.
okay. Well, I will verify that there is the true baluster and railing is still in existence. We also wanted to make one comment is that we do want a definite decision tonight and hopefully not get a deferral. That's what we're trying, not to have a deferral tonight.
Thank you. Does any board member have any questions right now?
And Mr. Chairman, I heard the timer go off and I had a short comment, but I understand time, and if I'm not allowed to make it, I will keep quiet.
Yeah, Mr. Maslon, if you want to just briefly, yes, wherever the time, so you can just be brief.
I'll be very brief. And I only wanted to speak briefly to the demolition part of the application. As Shelley mentioned, the request for demolition has been reduced substantially, as everyone knows, under 54, 231 and 232. One of the defining characteristics of y'all's jurisdiction is that it's visible from the public right of way. As you saw from the photographs that Mr. Dowd showed, it is perhaps visible, but barely so, and it's just a small portion of the roof. And then I would also refer the board to the requirements for denying demolition under 54-240F. Basically, that the demolition would be detrimental to the interest of the district and against the character of the neighborhood in the city. And so, for those reasons, I'd ask you to approve the demolition. That'll be it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board right now?
Well, and this is Julia Martin. It's just a minor question for Shelley. I'm curious why you're proposing a landing at the top of the relocated stairs.
Well, right now when they open up the door, it's just there's just not enough room to really get in. And when you come up and everything, it's like you'd be right next to it. I mean, we can make the landing smaller. It's just that when you come up to the door from the backyard, it's hard to just go in. It's just not enough room. That's all.
Thanks.
Any other board questions right now?
I had one question, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
Let me get to the second floor. Shelley, is this opening right here in an existing opening, or is that a new opening in a new location?
It's enlarged. There's a window there. There is a window there. You can see we've kind of been filled there to the left and had to enlarge it a little bit to make the opening work for the elevator hall.
Kind of moved it a little bit to the right, you're saying? Okay.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll go to public comment. Alex, let's see that we have one speaker.
Yes, I will allow April Wood to speak. Find her. All right, April, you're allowed to mute yourself.
This is April Wood from Historic Charleston Foundation. Historic Charleston Foundation believes that this project is moving in a good direction. We suggest a flat roof at the two-story hyphen portion to further differentiate this section from the historic structure. And by that, I mean the entire two-story mass, not just the glass hyphen area. On the east elevation, we recommend extending the hyphen corner trim board down so the two-story, so that the two-story hyphen section reads as a separate mass. We also have concerns about the oven vent size and hope that this can be reduced. For preliminary review, we recommend simplifying the drawings and not including the options so that it will be easier to understand the project. If these recommendations can be addressed, HCF recommends conceptual approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, April. staff recommendation.
Okay, well, just to point out that the project was deferred in January with the board directed to pull the elevator tower into the rear addition and retaining as much of it as possible before expanding widthwise to create a livable kitchen area. So this building is a category 2, which is, obviously reviewed with much more scrutiny. And category 2 is defined as the following: excellent high style regional architecture, fine Charleston style, well designed and proportioned with good detail. These are spirited, dignified, frequently innovative, rare, and always attractive and interesting, of irreplaceable importance to be preserved in situ at all costs. Staff supports the board's directive to design the addition with the elevator pulled into the plane of the rear addition, and the applicant has demonstrated that that is feasible by virtue of the board request plan on A111R, which would also, allow the stair from the porch to remain in its current position, limiting further effect on historic fabric. We therefore support the addition and elevator tower as proposed on the board request plan, excluding the stair relocation. It would be best if the stairs were located in the current location and were oriented east to west. If the board determines the applicant's proposal to be acceptable, we'd like to see the glass hyphen eliminated in favor of salvaged materials from the pre-existing 1911 addition. So we're recommending denial of the proposed design and conceptual approval of the design depicted as the, quote, board request plan on sheet A111R with the conditions noted and final review by staff.
Okay. Dennis, thank you.
You're welcome.
Shelley, would you like to respond to, or John, to public comment or to staff recommendation?
Okay, one thing I wanted to note is that we and my owners love their house, and they have lovingly restored the category 2 building that is, and they haven't taken any, they have gone to great pains to restore that building. So when we put this addition on, we're not just trying to destroy the original building. I just want that to be noted. Also, I presented the restudy to show the board that we did look at it, but our proposed design that I talked about more in depth is what my owners request for the review. And I think that is basically what we want them to review it on. So that's my response.
Mr. Chairman, John Maslon here. I would not comment on the architectural features, but thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, so we're now in board discussion.
This is Julia Martin, and although I don't consider this to be even partial preservation of the existing addition, I never really had much opposition to removing that. And I don't want this to be one of those spin cycle situations, but even though I'm not really a fan of this design and the geometry does not sit well with me, I do want the owners to have the elevator they need, and I think we're pretty close to a reasonable solution. I went by the property again today to remind myself about the visibility, and I think that the primary public views will be from the east. You know, the view that's on Google Earth doesn't really do it justice. You actually can see through the trees pretty well. And so I think Historic Charleston Foundation's suggestions were really good to shift to a flat roof at the 2-story portion and at least provide a trim board between the 2-story and 1-story portions of the addition. And I would tend to want to delete that glass element on the east portion. I just don't think it's adding anything. to this. And finally, I think it would be great if the proposed fenestration could be tightened up and simplified. Like I think 2/2 window proportions would probably read better and things like that that could be worked out with staff.
Okay. Any other board discussion?
Lynn Gardner, I tend to be on the same page with Julia. I know we've looked at a lot and we've been around and around on this. I definitely appreciate the more recent revision where I think what I called the balconette type railing on the back face has been removed, even though I know that's not very visible or not visible, but I think the windows are much more successful than a kind of a faux balcony. And I also agree about the glass hyphen. I think I understand what Shelley was trying to do to communicate the difference between the two, but I think the variation of siding material or siding gap would be more appropriate there.
I think this is Fillmore Wilson. I think I'm almost on the same page as Glenn and Julia. I think there's going to be an elevator here, one way or the other, and I think this is a pretty good attempt at trying to sort of mimic what was viewed as the board request. I agree. I think I'm not a fan of the glass, and I agree with Historic Charleston Foundation that the hyphen would be better with a flat roof. And so I think all that's already been commented on. So I think I am moving in that direction.
This is Bill Huey. I do concur with the other comments from the board members. I do believe that, albeit I do agree with staff's comments that the sort of board's directive solution I think is a very good one. Maybe the best. I'm willing to concede that the hyphenated solution of the proposal is viable to the degree that I believe the floor plan is something that I could support. I do believe though that the articulation of the elevations, including for flattening that roof, the fenestration patterns, the trim, there's a lot I believe from an aesthetic, if you will, for the elevation that should be addressed. And I believe a lot of that will probably allay some of the visual issues that appear to be happening with the proposed plan. So therefore, I would say that the proposed plan is viable, but I would like to see those elements restudied regarding the roof pitch at the hyphen area, and some of the fenestration and cleaning up a lot of the trim and other details. But I'm okay with the plan as submitted.
This is Jay. So it sounds like everyone's fairly aligned with conceptual approval of the proposed designs, and now we're talking about sort of what board conditions to impose. It is conceptual approval, so there would be further opportunity to see refinements. So unless I heard everybody wrong, maybe we talk about what board conditions might be appropriate right now.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Julia, quickly? It would be good if you could comment on the stair, the new location of the stair, and whether it should stay here and turn and go parallel to the porch, or if the new stair is okay. Just for clarity.
Yes, this is Julia Martin, the female among the group. And I did think about that, but they're trying to get in there and access the elevator. Oh, no, they're not anymore. You're right, they're
No.
not.
No.
So you would propose leaving it where it is and having a landing and turning to the west? Is that what you would prefer?
Possibly. I prefer not to do any further undoing of historic fabric on a category 2 if we can avoid it.
Uh-huh. I know that would be really tight in there in terms of construction and then eventually maintenance. So, I mean, I guess I'm willing to accept the proposed relocation. The landing bothers me. It's not required by code and it seems unnecessary. But I'm okay with the relocation given all the other considerations. Anybody else?
Yeah, Julia, Bill Huey, I agree, Julia, to your comment. I can see potentially that being a fairly tightly compact area and, all kinds of mold and things growing in there where it's really tight together. I do agree also about the landing. It would be a nice solution to have it tucked away in there, but in this instance, I don't have an issue with it.
All right.
Just,
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Fillmore.
So this Fillmore. I was just sitting here looking at the stair, and if the spacing, and of course I'm not exactly sure of the condition, but it's worth a look. If the spacing at the columns is consistent and the railing is in good shape, you might be able to remove the railing that's been previously cut and move it to the new stair location and take the intact railing from that location and move it to the closed location, eliminate the landing, and you might be able, it's just a guess, but it's a thought, you might be able to get away with not cutting any more historic railing.
Good idea.
But the spacing on the columns would have to be pretty close, or you could do it with a very slight modification or addition to existing railing so that the impact on the historic fabric would be minimal or minimized. And so I might suggest that as a compromise. And because, see, putting a landing there and turning the stair west might be a problem.
Okay, this is Julia Martin. I'm going to try to form a motion for...
Julia,
yes.
I'm sorry, I was muted and I didn't realize it, but I was going to say that from a staff perspective, what Fillmore just said would be good to include in a motion so that there's an expectation that that will, they'll try to make that happen, because what we found is things like that get said, and then when the project actually goes ahead, it never happens. So it's important for, okay.
So here's my draft motion for conceptual approval of the proposed design with the following board conditions. Number 1, to shift to a flat roof for the 2-story addition. Number 2, to eliminate the glass at the east elevation. Number 3, to extend the corner board on the east elevation down between the 2-story and 1-story addition. Number 4, eliminate the landing at the relocated stair. Number 5, refine and simplify the proposed fenestration. And finally, switch the railing sections, the balustrade sections at the rear of the piazza to avoid further alterations to historic fabric.
And I would remind you that you also need to make a decision about demolition.
Oh, we do?
Mm-hmm.
Was that part of the application?
Yeah, partial demolition.
Okay. Can I just also approve that I move for approval of partial, move for approval of partial demolition and
Okay.
approval of the proposed design. And finally, final review by staff, I think would be fine at this point.
Dennis, question.
Yes, sir.
So there's really two things going on here. It's an approval of a partial demolition. Would it be the materials that are necessary to accommodate the proposed design? Like what?
I think the board needs to determine that, you know, to what extent partial demolition is approved.
Well, I think what we're saying, or what I'm hearing at least, is that we recognize that partial demolition is necessary to achieve the proposed design, and I think we're okay, you know, to the extent it's shown as part of, to be removed as part of the partial design.
Yeah, I just think you need to include that in the motion so that the demolition is clearly approved before any, you know, rework occurs.
Okay. Is there any discussion of Julia's motion while we chew on it and I try to figure out what I just heard? So let me, well, before I reiterate it, make sure that has enough traction. Is there a second of it?
No, I'll second.
Okay, well, here's what I heard. There's multiple things going on. Number one, it's approval of partial demolition is required for the proposed design. Number two, it's conceptual approval of the proposed design with the following board conditions. The first being eliminate or modify the proposed roof with a flat roof for the two-story addition. Number two, eliminate glass at the east elevation. Number three, extend the corner board at the east elevation down between the 2- and 1-story additions. Number four, eliminate the landing of the stair. Number five, refine the fenestration. Julia, I might need some help on that. Number six, switch the balustrade and railing to avoid any necessary alteration of historic fabric. And final review by staff.
And I agree. I'd like, if we're doing final review by staff, I'd like some clarification on the refinement of the fenestration comment.
Okay. I had said refine and simplify. And honestly, I would trust staff to take that and run with it. I just think if you could look at the west elevation.
Okay.
I mean, I just think there's a lot going on there with the transom, the doors. I just think it could be simplified and a little more cohesive. And I have every confidence that staff could help guide that.
Okay.
So, Julie, to be clear, number five relates solely to the west elevation.
No.
Oh, no, I think it would follow with the north elevation if you change the window light cuts to 2/2.
Okay, so all fenestration on the addition.
I have a question for clarification. When we're talking about the demolition, we are approving the demolition then to the level that is shown on A110, which is everything is demolished except the wall and 2 parts of the foundation, I think. And so just for clarification, if we're approving the demolition as proposed on the approved drawings.
That's my understanding, Fillmore.
Okay. And Dennis, is that your understanding?
That is my understanding, Fillmore.
Okay.
And Jay, can I ask a question of the applicant at this point, just for clarification?
Please.
Shelley, are these windows double hung or are they casements as proposed?
She's still there?
Alex,
I
you
will-
may have to allow her
Shelley,
to
give me
speak.
just a second and I'll unmute you. Okay, Shelley, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. They are double hung and basically, I mean, the other windows on the other parts of the house are double hung or triple hung. But
Okay.
yeah.
Great. Thank you. That was it.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go start over. I think I got it now. So Julie's made a motion. That is number one, approval of partial demolition as depicted on drawing A110. Conceptual approval of the proposed design with the following board conditions. Number one, modify the roof design to include a flat roof for the two-story addition. Number two, eliminate glass at the east elevation. Number three, extend the corner board of the east elevation down between the second and first story additions. Number four, eliminate the landing at the stair. Number five, refine and simplify fenestration on the proposed addition. Number six, switch the balustrade and railing sections to avoid unnecessary demolition of historic fabric with final review by staff. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay, so Julie's made a motion. Bill, is that what you seconded?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna call a roll. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye or yes in favor or no, not in favor. Julia.
Aye in favor.
Bill.
Yay, in favor.
Glenn.
Aye in favor.
Fillmore.
Yay in favor.
The chair votes yay in favor. The motion passes. Next agenda item is 23 Legree.
Okay, this is a request for final approval for new construction of pool house and garage, another Category 2 structure in Charlestown, circa 1838 in the Old and Historic District. Existing site photo, the area for the pool house and garage. Looking east on Legree and looking west on Legree. Previous motion was conceptual approval with staff conditions noted, board condition to verify visibility of the skewed garage, and final review by staff, and that was January of this year. One board member said, get the whimsiness of the garden folly. The garage doesn't qualify as a folly. It's not encouraging, but the offset is just for parking accessibility. Another board member agreed with the board comments. Everything else is rectilinear. Garage is not harmonious. Tower can be whimsical. Does the garage door become more visible with the skew? Question. And the answer was they're 316 feet from the street, but could separate it a little. Another board member said the bridge is a letdown. It's just too plain. Mock-up may be warranted. Another board member said there's a focus on the folly and not the garage. And a fifth board member mentioned important enough point. If staff discovers that the garage is visible, bring it back to the board. And we did, which is why it's here this evening. With that, I can turn it over to the applicant for their presentation. Alex, if you will unmute Mr. Keys and allow him to speak, that'd be great.
This is Glenn Keys. I brought this before you in January. Overall, I think the board was favorable. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We did do a mock-up because there was some concern about if this was going to be visible at all. You can see in the site photograph, we did a mock-up and Ms. Lavin came and from Legree Street, even though it is over 300 feet, you can barely see the garage element. we did in redesign, we pushed it over. As you can see on the site plan, we pushed it over about 16 inches as far as we could to get close to the, that's the previous site plan, Dennis. If you,
There you go. That's what you're looking for, isn't it?
yeah, so we pushed it over 16 inches. We got it to the setback line of the live oak. But we do think it's important that for just usability, and we just think it's the quirkiness of having a folly that having the garage kind of skewed is actually beneficial to the overall design. If you look at the photograph from the road, go back to the first one, I mean, you can see, I'm not sure at this distance if it's discernible if that garage is on an angle or not. It's really a very small item in that photo. So we also took staff's comments and redesigned the windows in the package on the garage element, enlarged the size of the, yes, we enlarged the size of the rose windows per comments. And I think it's minimally visible. I think it's something we think is going to be a nice addition. And I think it'd be a great asset to the property. So we would ask for your approval, please.
Thank you, Glenn. Is there any board question at this point?
Bill Huey, I have one question of the applicant. One of the previous board comments was concerning the detailing of the connection bridge. Did you do anything to address that?
We did. There's more detail on that element. It is very simple. We were trying to keep it as a minor part of the design, as minimalist as we can between the two structures. So, but we did make some, and we also end up adding some lattice work at the lower end of it to shield the mechanical equipment, which is on the west side behind the bridge.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Alex, is there any public comment?
Yes, we have one person who signed up to speak, and I will allow Aaron Minigan to speak, and you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Erin Minigan with Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society continues to feel this is a very unique design, and being relatively far from the right-of-way, agree it will not have a major impact from the street. We are glad to see the garage building shifted further away from the circular folly. We feel the separation between the buildings has been eroded by the addition of the HVAC screening. We would encourage studying relocation of the HVAC behind the garage to allow an open view between the two buildings. Also, elements of the two buildings, including arched windows, express keystones, and copper and slate roofing, are too differentiated, and we would encourage the applicant to study unifying the materials and details to better relate the buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Okay, so staff recommendation.
We have confirmed with a mock-up and site visit that the cant of the garage will be visible down the long corridor of the driveway, although the applicant has shifted the garage toward the south and slightly altered the footprint. And the effect is to emphasize the round stair structure. Although the board may feel it's best to rotate the garage portion and shift it to the south and east, staff is not troubled by its placement at an angle. Relative to the overall mass of the existing structures, it is not dominant, and it is reminiscent of a garden folly. The bridge connecting the elements is much less elegant and unrelated, and that should be restudied. So we are recommending preliminary approval with the condition to restudy the bridge connection and final review by staff.
Okay, thanks, Dennis.
welcome.
Glenn, do you want to respond to anything you've heard?
You might,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate your comments. I think I would ask Dennis if you could possibly let us work this out on the bridge. I think it's a simple thing. I'd hate to have to wait another month or two to get this approved.
well, we're recommending final review by staff, Glenn.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, board discussion.
Bill Huey, I agree with staff's comments. It is a nice, really unique design. I really do think that there are really only two things lacking, and I do to the point of Ms. Minigan's comment about the HVAC screening. If possible, the units could move further down behind the garage and leave that open. I believe that would be much more a much nicer effect. And also just whatever degree of detailing. I know that's a very minimal point, probably not even visible, but even something maybe as subtle as maybe chamfering the 8x8 posts or something like that, just to give it a little bit of refinement, seeing those as just big square blocks of wood. So some degree of, and the main reason I've raised that point is because of how well this rounded tower is articulated. And so just some degree of complementary detail to that. Very subtle, but otherwise I agree with staff's comments and recommendation.
I agree with staff. I think the folly is, the stair tower, the folly is very interesting. I think that's what's obviously prominent here. And I think the bridge reads more as an element of the folly than the garage. And so it needs to have a little whimsy along with the round tower folly.
Glenn Gardner, I am okay with the round, the folly, especially with the updated detailing of it, but I'm not comfortable with the garage or the siding of the garage.
It's Julia Martin, and although the rotation of that garage still sort of irks me, knowing that it's predicated on a car's turning radius, I do appreciate the shift to the south so that visibility is truly minimal, if any, from Legree. And there might be some slight visibility from Linwood if all the trees disappear, but I'm comfortable with the design as submitted. And I do enjoy what I call the shower tower.
Okay, I'm going to go along. I appreciate staff's comments. I'm going to go along with them. I would like to see if there's any traction for a board condition. Bill, I think you started to make one, and I don't know if that's part of the motion or if that should be part of the discussion.
That be for the
HVAC
relocation of the HVAC or the articulation of detailing on a bridge?
Well, either or both. Is there maybe board discussion around any additional board conditions to add to staff recommendation?
I may ask a question, Mr. Chairman, of the applicant.
Sure.
In conjunction with those comments, Glenn, are you still with us? I wanted to ask about the HVAC equipment and the platform. So we are seeing on the drawing screening, and I assume the unit is that visible unit sitting there as a block, unscreened from the back, correct?
That's correct. We could screen on the back. You know, no one likes to see this equipment, and now we have to elevate it up, you know, above BFE. So there's very few places we can hide it because we're getting close to the property line. If you look at the site plan, we could put it behind the garage. That would push it south and put it completely behind the garage. It might be more visible to those people who live there, but it would now back, yeah, move it just to the south, Dennis, of the existing place.
Oh, over here.
That's about the only place we can move it, and we could do that.
Okay. And I guess my other question, Glenn, was is the air handler unit, the actual blower, going to be inside over the garage area primarily? Is that, so is it, that's what I was wondering, is it serviceable to move it over into that back corner of the garage behind the bridge?
It is. That'd be fine. Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I may, Bill, it might be good to just extend this platform out and screen the unit and have it sit right here so that it's integrated with this, connection, not yet again another feature.
Yeah, I do believe that's a good point. And again, by the time all that happens, it will be, I believe, virtually out of the public purview. So
yeah,
that's a good solution.
Okay, is anybody feel like proffering a motion?
I will, Bill Huey, I will make I'll make a motion for preliminary approval with the condition to restudy the articulation of the bridge elements and relocation of the HVAC platform to the south in construction with the bridge element, and final review by staff.
I would second that. This is Julia.
Okay. So here's the motion on the floor. Preliminary approval with two board conditions. One, to restudy the articulation of the bridge element, and number two, to relocate the HVAC platform to the south in conjunction or in construction with the bridge element, and final review by staff. Is that y'all's motion?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'll call the roll and for a vote. Again, y'all know how to vote. Bill Huey.
Yay, in favor.
Julia Martin.
Yay, in favor.
Glenn Gardner.
Opposed.
Fillmore Wilson.
Yay, in favor.
The chair votes yay in favor. The motion passes 4-1. All right, next agenda item is 56 Cannon.
Sorry, this is a request for conceptual approval for new construction of two single-family dwellings at the rear of the property. The category, whoever dog is barking, if you could mute yourself, that'd be great. It's the Category 4 structure, Cannonboro, Elliottboro, circa 1865. The old city district and height district 2.5 to 3. So location here behind this building on Cannon Street, between Felix and Cumming. This is a view of the property at the front from Cumming. I'm sorry, from St. Philip.
Dennis, I think we lost Bill again. This is Alex.
Oh, okay. I think Bill's gonna have to go to his office next time. Let me see if I can get him back. I'm sure he knows that he's not in, but we'll see.
Hello.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, it's okay. I've moved to another location in the house. I'm hoping my signal will be better, and I apologize profusely. You got my vote, right?
No, I don't think we did.
Okay, I voted yay in favor.
Oh, yes, we did. Yes.
Okay. I'm about to log back in. Hopefully this time it won't glitch anymore. I've moved to another part of mine. Let me get back on here. I apologize again.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see if I can do that. Sorry, I had to reboot. I moved my computer.
Jay, I think Bill is in the process of getting back on. I think we could go ahead and present, the background information, have the applicant start their presentation. He should be on by then. You okay with that?
You'll get going. Yes.
Okay. So this is a view from across the street from the site. Some excited neighbors there. Looking east on Cannon, and then looking west on Cannon. And this just helped us to identify the age of the building, which is 1865 to 1872. and the Sanborn maps that confirm that. And with that, I will turn it over to the applicant. Alex, if you could allow Mr. Gould to speak.
All right, actually it's John Sullivan who's the
Oh, I'm
applicant on this
sorry.
one. So
I'm
I've
sorry.
just promoted
Yeah.
you to panelist, John, and you can unmute yourself.
All right. Thank you. This is John Sullivan. I'm the architect for this project. The project is for 2 carriage houses at the rear of the property. There is nothing being done to the existing structure. It was actually renovated earlier this year. It was a quadruplex, and it was converted to a duplex. So I think you could see one of the photos showed it was actually new paint on it versus what it was. So that was just done. By that, we're going to make the property 4 units again by adding 2 single-family quadruplexes in the back. Oh, sorry, carriage houses in the back. I believe they're substantially smaller than the front. Each floor plate is about 40% of the main house. It's 3.5 feet lower gable to gable. I did do a front gable matching the main part of the house. I did match the roof slope of that. I looked at lowering it down to a smaller slope. I just looked a little too flat. And in reality, you can't even see the pitch or the gable. It's about 95 feet back from the street. So you really only see, part of the backside through the neighbor driveway in the front. In front of the gable, there's a low slope section and then a little gable section that steps down even further from the main gable by about a foot. The 2 units mirror each other, flanked around a turnaround space for the parking, and there are a bay on the second floor bedroom that extends out, but that's not really visible either. There is a project going directly behind this, part of 73 Spring Street, that has gone through the BAR. I believe it's gotten conceptual approval. So that is actually the full width directly behind this site that you'd be able to see from that. Guess with that, I'll end and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, John. Are there any questions from the board at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to public comment. Alex,
Jay, I have one question, if I may. I'm sorry, I was muted. John, are there any variances or special exceptions required for this?
No, we meet all setbacks, all lot occupancy, parking, et cetera. We've gotten the site plan approved from zoning, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Alex, if we could go to public comment.
Yes, we have 2 speakers who have signed up to speak before the meeting. I will call first on April Wood. And April, I've allowed you to speak and you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. April Wood, Historic Charleston Foundation. Historic Charleston Foundation believes that the 2 proposed single-family dwellings behind the historic house at 56 Cannon Street are subordinate to the historic structure in height, scale, and mass, but the architectural direction needs further refinement. In particular, the fenestration on the west elevation of the 2 proposed structures needs additional development. It appears that the windows on this elevation are not all the same size. The windows should be consistent and should be larger in size. To provide some outdoor space on the property, we recommend adding porches to the west elevation of each structure. We're also concerned about the limited green space on the site, and it is unfortunate that parking is driving the site plan. HCF recommends deferral so that the issues with the architectural direction can be addressed. Thank you.
Okay, and the next speaker is Aaron Minigan. And Aaron, I have allowed you to speak and you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Erin Minigan, Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society is concerned about this proposal primarily due to issues with architectural direction. Siding changes, inconsistent window sizes, boxy eaves, and a wide main gable with one open end and one closed end are too complicated and suburban in character. Generally, the details of the building should be simplified and enhanced and draw more inspiration from the primary house. We ask the board to defer this application to allow for reconsideration of the overall design and refinement of the detailing. Thank you.
Okay, Dennis, we'll get a staff recommendation.
Okay, let me get there. Staff is not supportive of this project. In addition to dominating the site with structures and paving, the building massing and architectural expression are very suburban in nature. Proportions of the facades and fenestration are contrary to the principles and pattern of historic structures in the context and the city as a whole. In addition, the new structures being the same width as the historic house and nearly the same height also does not meet the intent of the principles. The 8-inch projection of the gable form on the west elevation is an ineffective attempt to modulate the massing. The repetitive nature of the two buildings is uninspiring and should be restudied to create relationship without replication and to speak to elements of the main house. The mass that simulates a piazza enclosure is inappropriate, and the garbage enclosure needs to be appropriately located and designed, employing a typical urban fence detail. Screening of mechanical equipment will also need to be undertaken. But we're recommending denial for height scale mass and general architectural direction.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. John, you can respond to public comment as well as staff comments if you like.
Yes. Starting with, I disagree with staff that it's not that the mass is not subordinate. I think it definitely is on size and everything else. As we're also kind of hampered that the east property line is kind of slopes back towards the building, which kind of limits what we could do. Currently, right now, it's actually a gravel parking lot that goes all the way back to that circle by parking space number 5. So we're not taking away landscaping or that. We're really placing gravel that's already there with the structure and some nice landscaping. As far as the height, we can, as I said before, we could make it a little smaller by not matching the front gable slope. That would add 2 to 3 feet and reducing it. And if that's the direction the board wants to take, we're willing to do that. I just didn't think it looked as good. And as far as some comments about gable ends, the gable ends aren't really visible outside of the ones on the west elevation. So that's not something that I think is effective, and some details and all of that would obviously happen as it goes forward through development. As far as windows, there's really only 2 window sizes. One's for the bedrooms and the other ones are for the bathrooms. So as far as different sizes, that's what's driving that.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to board discussion now.
Okay, this is Julia Martin, and I looked at this property today, and you know, the visibility would be pretty high as you look down this driveway from Cannon. And similar to staff's concerns, I'm afraid that as you look down that driveway, it would all read as one big solid mass structure. I think these are pretty large footprints and aggressive programs with 4 bedrooms each, and their west elevations come out flush, you know, not with the historic mass of the single house, but with the additions and infill at the rear of the existing house. And there's less than 6 feet of breathing room between the old and the new. So although I do think, you know, this property can handle 2 dependencies, in my mind, the mass and scale of these is just too much, and the architectural direction lacks delicacy and deference to the historic.
Glenn Gardner, I would frankly echo exactly what Julia said. I think the program for what is trying to be shoehorned on here is just way too aggressive. And I know zoning has approved the site plan, but I have to say that, you know, the parking just doesn't function, but I'm not the zoning department. But I think that it's just too much affecting the design because of the program requirements or the program request is making it just overwhelm the site.
Fillmore Wilson, I agree with Glenn and Julia and staff. There's a lot of program on this site, and I think the mass of the buildings is too great. And I agree with staff that the architectural direction lacks subtlety and deference to the historic structure. So I am in agreement with staff.
Bill Huey, I really don't have anything to add. I agree with the comments that have been made.
Okay, I'm aligned with staff too. Is there any other discussion to provide direction to the applicant, you know, in terms of, or just, let me ask that. In terms of like how to what degree to shrink the footprint, to pull it in, pull it away, or just that's what I'm getting at. Okay, if not, is there a motion?
Glenn Gardner, I would make a motion for denial based on staff comments.
Okay. Is there a second to Glenn's motion?
Fillmore Wilson, second.
Okay. So the motion is denial for height, scale, and mass and general architectural direction made by Glenn, seconded by Fillmore. I'll call the roll. Glenn?
Aye in favor.
Fillmore?
Aye in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor?
Chair votes yay in favor. So the motion passes. Okay. The next agenda item is 241 St. Phillips Street.
Okay, this is a request for conceptual approval for new construction of a single-family residence behind 3 previously approved residences at 243 St. Phillips Street. It's new construction in Canterbury, Elliott Borough, the old city district, and height district 2.5, 3. So St. Philip here, south of Line, north of Bogard Street, west side of St. Philip. This is a view of the site right here. And looking south on St. Philip, the site over here on your right. And then looking north with the site over here on the left. And I will turn it over to Mr. Gould. Alex, if you could allow Mr. Gould to speak.
Sorry.
All right.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. All right. Well, maybe Dennis, could you go to the first slide, the first site photograph? There we are.
Yes.
All right, so let me try to clarify exactly what is our site here. So there's this long empty lot that goes from St. Phillips Street way back to the interior of the block. And it is divided into two lots. There's a larger lot at the front, which has the 3 houses already approved, which you guys have seen relatively recently when we came in for renewal of that approval. And then there's another lot directly behind that, a small sort of square landlocked lot. It's behind the wooden fence that you see right there. And that is the lot in question here, which is zoning approved for a single family house on it. So in this view, we've walked all the way back and we've gone through the gate of that wooden fence you saw. And so now you see this lot, which is fully fenced in right now. That is the entirety of the lot. And then looking at the back of this lot, what you're seeing, that masonry structure with the solar panel on the roof, that is the rear addition to a house facing Cumming Street. And coincidentally, I designed that as well. That masonry structure is a new dependency single family unit attached to the back of 262 Cumming that I designed and helped build. So going on to the next view. So we're now at the back of the lot in question and we're looking towards St. Phillips Street. And the next one, and now we're turned to the right, looking to the south. And then the Sanborn map, you can see, if you see the little alley labeled Mchugh Alley, yes, right there. So this is quite interesting. Back in 1888, this was actually a street with 4 houses on it. So its old configuration is almost exactly the same as the new configuration that it's going to have once all of these proposed structures are built. Mchugh Alley no longer exists as a street. It now only exists as an easement across 243 St. Philip. But we are hoping that once we get underway with this project that we can actually reestablish that as a city street name and set it back the way it was in the 19th century. And you can see that it originally had basically 4 very similar houses lined up in a row. They were 1-story houses. We're now going to have sort of 2.5-story houses, but the footprints are very similar to what we are now proposing. So if you go on to the drawings, so at the conceptual site plan at the top, you can see there's those 3 houses already approved, facing a wide driveway, essentially Mchugh Alley. And then at the back of that, there's this landlocked lot. And we want to put a 4th house on there. This lot has been purchased by a different owner than the front 3 buildings, but we are hoping to get them all built simultaneously by the same contractor. The new owner of this back lot wants a somewhat larger building than those other 3, a 4-bedroom house as opposed to the 3-bedroom. So the footprint is a little bit bigger. And because there's more space on this lot, we've put in a porch which faces west. It seems to be the best way for it to face. It's facing nice open space and garden, kind of hemmed in by the surrounding houses back there. And that porch really won't be visible at all from St. Phillips Street. I suppose it's theoretically visible from Cumming Street. And yes, so here you can see basically a section through the whole block, the 3 approved houses, the house in question now, and then the rear part of 262 Cumming, which is new construction I designed. So I've tried to make this new house similar but not identical to the other 3 approved houses. Its most important similarity is the entrance. Like the other 3, it's got this alcove entrance where the front door is recessed into an alcove with a little canopy roof. So it's similar, but the detailing is somewhat different. I've given it different windows, a different roof form. So again, I think it'll you know, give a little bit of diversity to the street, but it'll still fit into this pattern of a row of houses on an alley. And on the drawings down below, the middle drawing is showing how that house would look if it were built in isolation without the 3 approved houses in front of it. And then the bottom view is showing if it's built behind the 3 houses. You can see it's just a hair larger than those other 3. And it's similar in height to the historic building on the left and the mid-century church on the right. So here you can see it's many of the details that I use on many of my structures. It's got nice detailing with rafter tails, half dormers, a nice broad eave board, you know, nice beaded window trim and heavy sills, elegant pilasters flanking the recessed alcove for the front door. The porch has square columns with chamfered corners. Because of the issues we so often have with balustrades rotting and deteriorating, the owner of this project particularly requested that I use wrought iron balusters, which I've used very successfully on some recent projects that this board has approved. But again, that really won't be visible. Going on to the next view. All right, so there you can see basically the 2 back sides of the house. And going on. So the floor plan, you can see the front door is recessed quite deeply into an alcove, which will be quite nice for sort of stepping out of the driveway. And this is designed as a rental house. It's got ground floor bedrooms, one of which has its own access to the porch, you know, for flexible rental configurations. And then going on to the next floor plan, it's got the main floor with access to the porch on the middle level, and then going on upstairs, it's got 2 more bedrooms. And going on to the detail sheet. So here you can see the building section. It's designed to look like 2.5 stories. It's really sort of 2 3/4 stories. The knee walls are fairly high in order to make that top story fully usable. But like I have done with those other 3 houses and with most of the houses I've designed in recent years, the 3rd story is kind of disguised to really just look like a 1/2 story from the exterior. And moving on, you can see again my typical details, which are of course, you know, a lot better than what one sees on most new houses, you know, beaded trim and seals and moldings and everything of the quality that you typically see on a historic house in the neighborhood. So I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Any questions from the board right now?
So one question for the applicant. Has this always been a distinct parcel?
Yes, as you could see on the 1888 Sanborn map, it was actually a distinct parcel even then. So it's kind of always been a landlocked lot, and somehow that Mchugh Alley kind of got forgotten over time and no longer appears on plats or the tax map. But yeah, it's always been its own lot.
Okay, and then one last thing. Will that reestablished alley be a public right-of-way or private?
No, I certainly don't anticipate the city wanting to take it over. I think it would just be a matter of giving that easement that exists there a name and a street sign, if we can get the blessing from GIS and addressing to do so, because the addressing is kind of stupid right now. You know, it would be 243 A, B, and C followed by 241. I'd rather it be, you know, 1, 2, 3, and 4 Mchugh Alley. So hopefully GIS will allow us to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so Alex, we'll go to public comment. Is there any public comment?
No public comment for this one.
Okay, so we'll go straight to staff recommendation then.
Okay, let me bring that up. So this proposal is taller than the approved buildings fronting on St. Phillips Street. And in addition, it towers over the house at 262 Cumming Street. It is not subordinate to either of these buildings, directly contradicting the ordinance. And that's 54-306 General Requirements, paragraph 12. And the principles. Height, scale, and mass, therefore, need to be restudied to be lower, smaller, and less massive. Proposal also does not meet the ordinance requirements for the ratio of height to width. And this is a even bigger issue, I think. That's paragraph 9 of those same general requirements. The width will need to be reduced to comply with that requirement. The space between the window heads and eaves needs to be reduced. This will help to reduce the height and mass, but this alone may not be enough. The building is essentially a replicated version of many designs the board has seen lately, and we feel the balustrade is high style for a rear structure, chamfered columns, decorative balustrade. Otherwise, details and materials are well conceived and appealing. So we're recommending deferral for height, scale, and mass with the conditions noted. And I guess I'd add that, the board does have the authority to reduce the height by a half story for context and, for context immediate to the project and greater context. And that's it.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. Andrew, you can respond to that if you like.
Sure. Well, I'm afraid my response has to be that Dennis's comments relating to the ordinance really don't apply here, because the ordinance he references about subordination applies to when it's a rear house behind an existing house on the same lot. This is a vacant lot. There's no other structure on the lot for it to be subordinate to. And I'm quite confident that if you all go ahead and look up the ordinance, you will see that the board is really under the current ordinance, which of course was written for the purpose of clarifying how tall one can build a house on any given lot. That authority that the board has to require subordination and to reduce by a half story and that sort of thing, that is for when you're building a building on a lot that already has a building on it. It doesn't apply to a house.
No, that's not true, Andrew. The board has the authority to reduce the height by a half story for any structure, regardless of whether it's a rear structure or not.
It does say that with relation to the general heights of buildings around and on the block and so forth. But the height of this building is extremely similar to all of the buildings around it. It's only a foot or two taller than some of the buildings, and it's shorter than the one it's right next to. Furthermore, Dennis, I don't even know what you're talking about with the ratio of height to width. The only thing in the ordinance that talks about height to width says that the facade may not be more than twice as tall as it is wide, which is clearly this is not. This building is rather squarish. So
well, no, it talks about a 2-to-1 ratio. So the width of the house and the height of the house have to conform to a 2-to-1 ratio.
It
so
says
given the height that you've designed, the house would need to be narrower to meet that proportion.
You have it exactly backwards, Dennis. It says that a house may not be more tall and narrow than a 2-to-1 ratio. Let me find that ordinance right now. I have the ordinance in front of me.
Well, I don't want to get into a debate, and that's not appropriate. But I think the board will have to consider these points.
Well, I think I can insist as a procedural matter that I believe false information was stated, and I would like someone present to actually look it up and read the ordinance.
I have number 9 at my fingertips. I can read if that would help. Is that the one we're talking about?
That's one of them, yes.
Building height to roof eave shall not exceed twice the building width of the primary facade of habitable space fronting the street, provided BAR review may waive this provision based on architectural merit and context.
Yeah, and what I'm saying, and what the intention of that was to govern the proportions of buildings. You know, the building height is dictated by the height district. This was all about proportions, and the typical proportions of structures, historic structures in Charleston, is 2 to 1. You know, twice as tall to the eave as it is wide. That's what I'm referring to.
Okay.
Am I still live here?
Yeah, Andrew, if you'd like to finish up, yes.
Well, again, what is exactly of the building width? So it's saying a 2 to 1 relationship is the absolute maximum proportionately that you may not exceed. It's unfathomable to me that you guys could think that every building has to be a 2 to 1 height to width ratio. I mean, you approve buildings of all manner of different ratios. That provision was just in there to try to avoid rocket houses that are unreasonably tall and narrow.
Okay. Andrew, I don't want to cut you off. Does that conclude your sort of clarification?
Well, let me address the other items in here. The building is essentially a replicated version of many designs the board has seen lately. I mean, that's not really true. I mean, I guess it's true that many of the backyard houses I design are substantially similar in that, you know, they all are kind of 2.5, 2 3/4 stories because that's what the zoning allows in this neighborhood. And that, you know, they've all got porches and, you know, I guess I'm not exactly sure what Dennis means in that regard. I've deliberately made it somewhat similar to the other 3 because I kind of think if you're going to have 3 identical houses, the 4th one shouldn't be wildly different. It should be somewhat similar for a good coherence of the alley. And you know, I don't really see why a new house on a vacant lot should be low style. Again, this is not a dependency. There's no historic structure it's relating to. It's a vacant lot. It's a new building in a neighborhood that's full of fairly ornate Victorian houses, most of which have fancy turned balusters. The use of cast iron is admittedly uncommon for Charleston, but this board has allowed me to do it on several other houses, and people have reacted very well to that. I don't really want to make an exact copy of a Victorian house here, but I don't think that particularly on a vacant lot, I should be held to a requirement that it be a simpler or more vernacular sort of building than the other houses in the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you. So at this point, we're going to go into board discussion then. So the board discussion.
Dennis, Bill Huey, can you go back? Yes, that up the building section. I'm gonna look. It's illegible to me, but maybe you can make it out. I was just trying to determine the floor-to-floor heights that we're looking at, or ceiling heights rather. Okay, that's getting better. Okay. All right, and then
It's 4'11" to the top of the knee wall here, but this internal knee wall is
gets it up.
taller than that.
8'8" to the collar tie.
Right. It doesn't say. Right.
Yeah.
Getting a little.
That's okay.
Too
It's
big.
probably up to get it up to code, which is going to be 5 feet or more. That's understandable. And so we have 8, 10 1/4 for the next level down.
Right.
And then we have 9, 6 3/4. Okay, that's what I was wanting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, this is Julia Martin, and just to start with, I'll just comment that I have enormous respect for staff, and I feel like everything goes better for everyone when we all sort of display that respect for staff. But here are my thoughts about this project. To me, the calculus on this one is a bit different from a project where we're dealing with a historic house and a dependency. This is a distinct parcel in the middle of a block. And from the St. Philip perspective, we're looking at a contemporary development where I believe often we do like to see the height ascend toward the interior of a block, for what that's worth. And like we saw at 23 Legree earlier, there are a number of examples of substantial houses set back on flag lots in the historic district as well. So I'm personally not concerned with this structure being subordinate to the street fronting houses, and at least from St. Philip, I don't think the size difference would be perceptible from the street. In terms of design direction, this seems respectable to me, you know, refined without being overwrought. It's true that it does share a good bit of DNA with other recent designs from this architect, but I'm not really troubled by that. I mean, I think that's a phenomenon with a long history in the city, and I'd much rather see multiple iterations of a good design than multiple designs with a wide range of successfulness. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, Bill Huey. I would say that I definitely see both sides of this presentation. I do see the applicant's points, and I believe some of those points are valid. I do agree with some of staff's comments, but I do look in context as well. I'm trying to understand. And I think I might have either further talk with staff about that interpretation of that particular section of the ordinance. I kind of read it as the anti-rocket house ordinance as well, but there may be more to it than I've interpreted. I think looking at this particular home. I believe probably even within the floor-to-floor heights, it looks like at least the eave heights could be contiguous with the other homes that have been designed. And with only that minor adjustment, I think I'm comfortable. And as far as the degree of detailing on the house, I can only say I was lamenting detail on the last application, and I believe there's a good level of detail on this home. And to whatever degree, that's what makes it interesting. And as I'm looking here at these details that are presented on the screen, The window surrounds are detailed well. The dormers are detailed well. The eaves are detailed well. So I'm encouraged by that. I think in my view, it would be basically a somewhat potentially minor concession of height to maybe have the eve height of this home correlate a little more with the other homes that have already been designed. But other than that, I believe it can work pretty much as is. So that's my comment.
I think I'll defer, this is Jay, I'll defer to you guys on the general architectural direction, but in terms of the, the height, the mass, the scale, in relation to the surrounding buildings and the philosophy that the further back a build, on a lot you go, the more subordinate it should get to the main structure. I do feel sympathy for the applicant on this one, in that this seems like it's been a lot for 100 and something years, and you're not sort of constrained by showing deference to the main structure on the lot, which I've always understood. That's why this philosophy of subordination came along. So in terms of the height, scale, and the mass, Bill, I'd go along with you in terms of a nod at a reduction in height, but I generally don't have a problem with it, and then I'll defer to you guys on the architecture.
Glenn Gardner, I'm aligned in general with what's been said. I certainly appreciate the architect providing detail, especially at this level. And I think that to the point about the height, it is a unique lot and a unique situation where we have to consider it a little differently. I'm not saying there aren't a few tweaks that I think could easily be made, or not easily, but that could be made. But I'm not overly troubled by it on this particular application.
This is Julia again. I'll just float a motion for conceptual approval with a board condition to bring the eave height down to match the adjacent structures to the east, and final review by staff.
Okay, so Julie's made a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Glenn Gardner, I'll second the motion.
Okay, so Julia's made a motion for conceptual approval with a board condition to reduce the eave height to match the structure to the east, and final review by staff. Did I get that right, Julia?
Yes.
Okay. Glenn has seconded it. I'll call the roll. Julia?
Yay in favor?
Glenn?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
The chair votes yay in favor. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
145 Moultrie.
And I think, Mr.
I'm
Wilson,
recused.
you have to recuse on this? Yes.
Yes.
So Alex, if you could put Mr. Wilson on hold for this item, and then he can come back for the final item. Thank you. So this is 145 Moultrie Street, requesting approval for the installation of a 16-ounce copper standing seam roof to replace the previously existing after-the-fact demolition of barrel tile. This is Category 3 in Hampton Park, circa 1935, and the historic materials demo purview. This is the house at the corner President and Moultrie. You've seen this before. We're talking about this barrel tile roof on the structure originally. It's a view looking from Moultrie, and then from President. And across the street to the east. and then adjacent houses on Moultrie. And this just here to show us that it's 1935, actually, the date of the house. Here it is, corner of Moultrie and President. So previous motion from the board was denial of copper material and requirement for use of tile material, and that was in February of this year. Previous board comments, first board member said, if anyone can do this right, it is the applicant. Agree with the synopsis of the Preservation Society. The applicant has the knowledge and the skill to handle this. What is the character defining feature of the house? Question, the tile roof. Another board member said very well, agree with staff. And finally, a third member agreed with staff's recommendation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the applicant. Alex, if you could allow Mr. Metters to speak, appreciate that.
All right, Mr. Metters, you can unmute yourself now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I attended Glide United Methodist Church in San Francisco, and I heard a great minister say, when you believe with all confidence that what you believe to be true without any doubt is true, take a step back and consider, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm not following the right path? So that made me think about my peers, the Historic Charleston Foundation, the Preservation Society, my neighbors, the Hampton Park community. Made me think about the Category 3 rating of my house and everything that comes with that. And it made me think about you as members of the Board of Architectural Review and the difficult job that you have with applications like mine. So I surrounded myself with a great team so I can make sure that this was not just me. I made sure that Fillmore looked at me a lot. I made sure that Mike Hance, who is our great structural engineer on many projects that are very difficult to complete, was a part of the decision making. And at the request of the city, I then engaged John Moore, because we are working with John Moore at the Abbeville Episcopal Church Trinity now on the steeple and many, many other projects. And John is, I'm guessing, Dennis, that all board members received a copy of both of the letters. And so it's important, and I'm not going to read them, but I'm sure that you have.
They did, Jay.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
So I am the current steward of this house. And I mentioned to each of you that I bought this house because I was attracted to the outside appearance of it. The concrete tile roof, when I bought it, in fairness, I did not understand the complexities of the weight of the concrete roof in relationship to the failures of the structure. So I met Kevin Eberly, who was my neighbor, and as you will all remember, he has written you a letter about the extent of research and documentation that we've done, and you've already read that into the record. I removed the concrete roof and repaired all of the failing structure around the perimeter of the house because it had to be done. And as I mentioned to you 3 times before, I did that because we were doing permitted work and realized that water was leaking into the inside of the house during that work, and we took it off. Shouldn't have done that. Agree. We weren't trying to hide anything. The house was completely scaffolding, as it still remains today. as the steward of the house, I asked myself, with the knowledge that I have from the experience of my career, what is the least damage that I can do to this house moving forward? So I retasked Mike Hance and tasked John Moore with, can I just go back in and put these supports inside, regardless of what it does to the second floor? It doesn't matter. Can I do that? And what I've now learned is that I cannot do that. I cannot just go back in and put the supports where they were, because as you go up the stairs, you will remember that the floor itself fails off to the southwest corner. So the walls on the first floor that had assumed a load because walls were taking out were never originally intentioned to have a load. And I was not taking that into consideration. The letters that have been written from Mike and John address work that has to be done, which would include, and it can absolutely be done. The outside appearance of that roof can go back and look exactly like it does right now with tile on it. But these two letters tell you from two people that I respect, not what needs to be done to make the second floor usable for me again, what has to be done to reinstall a clay tile roof on that house. And when I weigh that as the current steward and the historic fabric that I'm going to lose for roof framing, and even the extension of that work down into the first floor walls, and nobody can tell me yet the extent of that, which means plaster repairs, none of which is under your purview, but it influences and should influence because of your desire to, like mine, save all parts of this, not just look at the simple parts of it. I'm going to be spending more money doing what I want to do than I would with this other approach. I just can't understand or appreciate the request from the city for me to do this. And I'm about to say something that is out of character for me, but this is that important to me. There are times when some of you on the board, if there was something very difficult, you may look to someone in our company or our company to say, hey, give us your opinion on this, because we would give you an unbiased opinion about means and methods and how to achieve not what an owner wants to achieve, but what's right for the building. And we will do that. And that's what I'm doing for you today. Yes, this is my house, but what I am proposing to do is not for cost savings. It's because it's what I believe is the right thing for the house. And Dennis, just for clarity, when you need us, you will call and ask us for help. And I give you the same truthful answers on those calls as I am on this. That doesn't mean we have to agree, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And you're okay with that. And but I commit to you that this is what I think is the best thing for this house long-term as the current steward. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, James. Does anybody on the board have a question? Okay. Alex, can we go to public comment?
Yes, we have one speaker who's signed up. Aaron Minigan, I'm allowing you to speak, and you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Erin Minigan with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society continues to oppose the request for a copper roof in place of the previous tile roofing material. The tile was the primary character defining feature of this house, and we feel copper is not an appropriate replacement option. We were encouraged by the direction given by the board at the previous hearing of this item and agree there are options available to restore the tile roof. We respect the expertise of the engineers. We feel no new compelling information has been provided to warrant reconsideration of the board's previous denial of the request. In fact, the letters indicate there are indeed feasible structural interventions that would allow for the replacement of the tile. Through multiple site visits with the board, it has been made clear there are possibilities to intervene on the interior to provide necessary support for the weight of a replacement tile roof. We feel strongly this is the best solution for this house, and again ask the board to deny the request for a replacement copper roof. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Staff recommendation.
I first want to say that I have tremendous respect for Mr. Metters and his firm. They are a resource for us when we have technical questions on various projects around the city, and we really appreciate that. But I can't let that affect what I am charged to do as part of my position as the city architect and preservation officer for the city. So we recognize that the copper, this is not a value engineering measure. Copper roofs are extraordinarily expensive. So this is not to save costs. It's not a value engineering effort. But we are of the opinion that the tile roof is an essential and character defining feature of this original Category 2 building, and that it could be accommodated structurally. We're therefore compelled to be consistent and uphold the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation in that materials removed must be replaced in kind. And because of that, we're recommending denial of the roof material replacement in like kind recommended, approval of after the fact removal of existing roof if replaced per our recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome.
Mr. Matters, you're welcome to respond to any or all of it.
Thanks, Jay. I think an in-depth study that we've conducted reveals a conclusion that if you care holistically about a building and you want to preserve it for 100 years or 200 years, putting a concrete tile or a Ludwig tile back on that roof and the loss of material that will be gone forever, there is no question that, in my opinion, salvaging all of that and putting a copper roof on there. So you're noting in history, this modification was made in order to save the balance of the material of the roof framing and portions of the ceiling frame of the first floor is critically important. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board discussion.
Bill Huey. Well, I guess first of all, I would echo the comments that have been made regarding the applicant. I totally concur. Your knowledge and your expertise is important to the city, and you're valuable. Now to the point about this, I believe what I'm inferring from your presentation is that, as to your earlier presentation on the same matter, someone at some point in time did some things inside of this house in efforts to potentially gain more space upstairs, and now it sounds like they did some other things maybe downstairs. And it appears the dilemma of that work was that they've made it more difficult to carry load paths appropriately from this roof down to the foundation. I appreciate that issue. But I guess I will say too, to the point, as you well know, and I believe as the board obviously well knows, there's a reason that the first and foremost charge of our board is to address exterior issues of the city, of these homes, and the character of these homes and the defining features of these homes is to protect those. And our Bible per se in that issue would be the Secretary of Interior standards. And it's quite clear what's stated about character defining features. And again, I believe I was the one in the earlier board comment that said that what would you see of this home prior to removal of this roof as the character defining feature? It was that tile roof. If I rode down the street however many years ago and say, yeah, oh yeah, that house with the tile on it, that's what I would have identified your house as. I know that in our meeting there previously and looking at the issues, I understand that there potentially would be some structural modifications and a lot of things that may have to happen in correction of some really probably just some unconsidered work that happened in the past. But you know, we in our community, architects, contractors, all of our community, you know, we make a living at fixing unconsidered work. It's one of the things that we do. It's one of the reasons we make a living in Charleston. We try to sort of right some wrongs sometimes. And I just can't bring myself to say that tile roof or that home without that tile roof is going to be the same home again. It's just, it was a major part of the character of the house. And now, again, revisiting these pictures and seeing the detail and articulation of those tiles and the ridges and the termination caps, everything, I think it's very important. So sticking with the letter of the law on this one, and that my position would be in agreement with staff's comments and with the Preservation Society comments. Thank you.
This is Julia Martin, and I think a lot of what staff and Bill just stated were well articulated, and I do recognize that the applicant is being really thoughtful about the situation and the house as a whole, but we're sort of limited because our purview, again, is about what's visible to the public from the public right of way, and that sort of effectively diminishes the importance from our perspective of what happens inside. And I regret that for you, because you know, in a vacuum, I would certainly agree with your overall assessment of the structure and the effects on the interior and the whole situation. But for us, what we are charged to protect is what's visible to the public. So I think we're sort of preordained to try to protect and restore that tile roof.
There's nothing more I can add that Bill and Julie have already said. Is there any other board discussion?
Yeah, it's Glenn. I was absent the last time. I was there the first time it came to the board, but I was absent the last review, so I've kind of held back from a whole lot of comment because I know that there were some things considered or mentioned in my absence that I may not be completely privy to. But for the record, in a normal case, a nicely detailed copper roof would be probably receiving praise from the board. And I think that this is just a very difficult scenario. I just have one question that I should have clarified during the question time. If tile is required to be put back on the roof, are the ridge caps able to be matched as to how they were before?
Are you asking Mr. Metters?
Yeah.
Alex, if you could unmute Mr. Metters if he's not already.
Yeah, he did. Glenn, I appreciate your thoroughness and your question and your thoughtfulness. What makes this roof so unique and makes it so significant to me when I bought the house was that it was made in Charleston. The Stevenson family owned a concrete tile roofing company just over west of the Ashley, and I was able to do all the research to find out everything about this roof before I bought the house. And can we buy those pieces that you can buy some that would be similar? Sure, but it matches exactly now. And we've looked long and hard, and I just want to make sure that it's clear that putting this roof back on at the 12.6 pounds per square foot will not work. It will not work. It's not a question of whether it's going to work. It will not work, which is why we engage the engineers. And this defining features, which you're bringing up, Glenn, they're fantastic. But we can get something similar, but that great company is not in existence anymore.
So thank you, Mr. Metters. I guess that then leads my point to ponder for the board. I fully understand the Secretary of the Interior's standard, but if something cannot be matched identically, I guess I would have to see a sample of what is available, because I think there's a fine line in risking it being a tacky reproduction tile roof versus truly being what it was, that was character defining, which unfortunately, I guess the ship has sailed, that is gone. So that's the quandary I'm honestly in, is how to guarantee an authentic look and it not be a reproduction that doesn't quite hit the nail on the head.
Bill Huey, I think I'm remembering correctly, and Mr. Metters may need to chime in on this. I thought at the first application he spoke, he had salvaged some of that tile or a fair bit of it. Is that not correct, Mr. Metters?
Yeah, Bill, that is right. And I still have the finial pieces and have used those in conversations with Luigi and other manufacturers to find out what they have that is similar. So putting something up, whatever goes back up there is going to be similar. It's not going to be matching. And Bill, you actually brought up a tile which we looked up and followed up on also during the site visit.
So the reason I asked that question, Glenn, to your point, having that existing material still available and then seeing what comparably, and I know Mr. Metters would tirelessly research this and get the closest thing he could find, could be presented to staff for approval. Sometimes like kind seems like an ambiguous term, and I guess to whatever degree it might be. It doesn't say exact match, it says like kind. And I think that would be in conformance with the intent of the standard, at least the way I see it.
I get that, Bill, and I think that, I'm reading and listening to what staff recommendation is and what preservation groups are asking for, and we know what the Secretary's standard is. I would, to me, prior to imposing a requirement, put the roof on in tile, I think staff or the board would have to review samples comparing old and new, because, and this is not any kind of emotion, but to me, I would prefer to see a very nicely detailed copper roof if there was no available option that was deemed acceptable with regard to the tile.
Bill Huey, I do agree with your point, Glenn. I believe just from experience in similar roofs and materials like this. I believe there are acceptable alternatives, but yes, those should be presented and vetted. I believe that can be done at a staff level myself.
It's Julia Martin, and I would agree with you, Bill.
Me as well. Okay. Does anybody want to try to make a motion at this point?
Bill Huey, I'll make a motion for a denial of roof material replacement and replacement in like kind material, subject to a final review by staff of the appropriateness of that material.
I think for the record, it would be important to address the issue of the demolition as part of the motion.
Point of order, staff. That would be denial of after the fact demolition. Is that what we're saying?
I think that's true based on your motion.
Then, Mr. Chairman, with your concession, I would amend the motion to include also denial of after the fact approval of demolition of the tile roof.
Bill,
Okay.
may I clarify, would this motion allow staff to handle the full path forward if an acceptable tile were provided?
Yes, Mr. Gardner, that would be the intent that I was putting forward with the motion. Yes, final review by staff. Yes.
Okay.
Before I reread Bill's motion, is there a second?
This is Julia. I'll second it.
Okay, Bill, let me make sure I got your motion right. It was denial of after the fact demolition and denial of roof material replacement in like kind recommended, subject to final review by staff of material appropriateness. Okay. Bill's made a motion. Julia seconded it. I'll call the roll. Bill?
Yay, in favor.
Julia?
Yay, in favor.
Glenn?
Yay, in favor.
Fillmore has recused. The chair votes yay in favor. So the motion passes 4-0. Okay. Thank you, everyone. The next agenda item, I don't even know how to pronounce the street, 24A Ogier Street.
Yes. And this is a request for conceptual approval for the enclosure of a roof terrace. Building is not surveyed. It's newer. Radcliffe Borough, circa 1917, and the old and historic district, but that's not accurate. It's not 1917. It's within the last 5 years, 6 years. So here's the site on Ogier between Vandross and Calhoun. This is the building in question. And a view looking southeast on Ogier. And then looking north on Ogier. And looking south, building over here on the left. And with that, I will turn it over to the applicant for their presentation. Alex, if you could allow the applicant to speak.
Yes, I just promoted Liz Drake to a panelist, and you can unmute yourself. Or I'll unmute you. There you go.
Sorry, I gotta unmute.
We can hear
we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Sorry. Hey, this is Liz Drake. I am working for Patty Wilborn Design on this project. The clients approached Patty and would like to enclose the third floor deck to capture that space for an office. So thank you. Currently the house has the garage below, and then the first floor is an open concept living. The second floor is a couple of bedrooms, and upstairs is the master. And so in the 3D, as you can see, these are all just little views. On the left is the existing, and on the right is the proposed. There's that parapet wall, and currently the construction, they've got shiplap siding and 3-coat masonry stucco. And I just thought we would continue with that material. And kind of, could you move maybe to the elevations, please?
Sure.
And use the same materials come up, but where the parapet wall is, we are kind of stepping in a little bit. It's an omni-block system, so we would step in the width of one omni-block, then come up. And as you can see, I've just got the windows there. They're aluminum clad. Same roofing material that's very low, minimal slope. And just trying to give them a light-filled room that they can use, and also continue the design, but kind of make it secondary to the overall design. That's one part of it. And then the clients would also like to duplicate the style of the steel gate they have currently going to the front entry. They would like to take that and create a gate into the parking area. This parking area services both 24A and 24B. The owners would work together. I think they may have had some problems with some break-ins recently. And there's a space there. If you look at the photos, you can see there's nice landscaping that it's grown. The pictures earlier shown did not have the mature landscaping that's come up. And so the gate would be pretty much concealed. You have a 9-foot automatic gate, and there's room for it to swing in. So those are the two things that they would like to do. It's pretty straightforward. So your comments are welcome as to the design and everything.
Thank you, Liz. Is there any board questions right now? Okay, is there public comment, Alex?
Yes, we have one speaker who signed up, and I will allow Erin Minigan to speak, and you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Erin Minigan, Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society opposes this request to infill the front roof terrace. The house was deliberately designed to set the mass back off the street, and this proposal completely counters that by causing the front to read as a full 3 stories. We urge the board to deny this request to maintain the design intent of this recently constructed building. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Erin. So staff recommendations.
Well, this building was approved and constructed prior to the modification of the current height districts in the city ordinance and was compliant for height at that time. However, the project is representative of why the ordinance was changed. Let me get to those comments. The project is representative of why the ordinance was changed to avoid overly tall buildings in residential areas of the city that are out of character with the immediate context, and that's the rocket house, idea. The height of this building would not be permitted to be constructed today in this area. The step back of the height and mass at the street by virtue of the open terrace helps to somewhat mitigate the impact. However, infilling the terrace with enclosed space, thereby extending the height and mass, is inappropriate for the context. And just a technical note, but I think it's doubtful that the gate will not need additional vertical support members, but that's a detail to be considered at a later time. So we're recommending denial of the application based on height, scale, and mass.
Okay. Liz, would you like to respond to public comment or staff recommendations?
Well, I mean, there's the parking garage across the street from here, and yes, the building is tall. I mean, I tried to be sensitive by stepping it back that space, and I think we've got the wrong. There was a better 3D than this. I'm sorry, I had a more clear one, and I think in the rush to get it all going, but the fact that the building was allowed to be built that tall, has nothing, I guess, to do with this now, and that we're just trying to enclose that space, step it back. It's across the street from a garage. Yes, it is the taller building of the two surrounding it. Just, the clients would like to grab that space, and I tried to do it in as sensitive of a way, adhering to the design we had. So, that's pretty much that's pretty much it. I don't see that we could, it wouldn't be usable space if we tried to step it back anymore, but so I guess it's just up for discussion as to the homeowner's request and the fact that the house was like this. I mean, we're not increasing the existing height. We're staying below the height that it is now, just to be noted. So the fact that it was built that tall, I wouldn't think would really matter here. It's more just a streetscape issue. And you have the 3D images to look at.
Okay, thank you. So we're in board discussion then.
Mr. Chairman, Will Huey, I have a question of staff. Ms. Minigan raised a point in her comments, and it was concerning that front mass and the fact that it was deliberately subordinate in order to create a lower presence to the street. That may be by recollection, given the fact that I believe this building, as stated, maybe not 1917, but 2017 or whatever we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Was there? Is there any record in the minutes of a presentation to that effect that it was deliberately set for that purpose? I'm just interested to know.
I don't know the answer to that offhand, Bill, but it wouldn't surprise me that if the building came in where this area of the building were as tall as it is out here as well, that we would have asked that the mass be reduced at least out at the street. But I can't definitively confirm that now.
Thank you. I asked that question because it almost does look like that deliberate design intent for that purpose, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question for staff. Is it possible that we could consider conceptual approval of the gate below?
Sure.
All right. I would tend to align myself with staff's comments about the enclosure at the top, and along the lines of what Phil was saying, I'm confident there was some discussion of the effect of stepping the mass back at that top level. And I think that was probably key in getting it approved. So I think it would be wrong to undo that at this point. But I don't have a problem with the gate.
Bill Huey, I agree with Julia's comment. I would just say if the applicant wants to research the file, they should be ready to do that. But I do believe, to your point, Julia, that probably wasn't intentional. It looks like an intentional design move. So I agree with your comment.
Yeah. Fillmore here.
Sorry, go ahead, Fillmore.
No, that's right. Go ahead, Glenn.
Glenn Gardner. I am completely fine with the gate request, and slightly for the board, but I would just urge the applicant to carefully explore what opener system they use if the gates are mechanically opened, because I think this does flood, if I'm not mistaken. And so a typical arm opener that were mounted low to the ground would probably end up being a headache for the owner. So perhaps a method of having the arm opener mounted higher but disguised, or there are some really good fully sealed in-ground openers now that wouldn't be visible at all.
I missed the applicant's presentation because I was still locked out, but from
That
the
was my fault. Sorry.
But I've looked at this and I agree with my fellow board members. I don't have any real issue with gates, but certainly adding mass to the height of this building, I think would be problematic.
Okay. Sounds like everybody's fairly well aligned. Julia, were you getting ready to make a motion?
I was. All right, here we go. I'm gonna make a motion for denial of the roof terrace enclosure and conceptual approval of the gates with final review by staff.
Guys, is there a second? Julie's made a
This is Bill Huey, I'll second. I'm sorry, it took me a minute to click.
All right, so Julia's made a motion for denial of the roof terrace enclosure and conceptual approval of the gate with final review by staff. Bill has seconded it. I'll call the roll. Julia?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Glenn?
Yay in favor.
Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes yay in favor. Motion passes unanimously. That's it. That's the end of the first virtual meeting of the VAR. I guess meeting adjourned.
And all board members, I apologize for my interruptions causing disruptions to the meeting. I apologize.
Yeah, I was going to have dinner after this, but now I'm going to have breakfast, Bill.
I'm sitting at my dinner table right now, Dad.
This is probably a record in length for 7 agenda items.
Yeah, no kidding.
Dennis,
But that's why we did 7, because we knew it was going to, there were going to be some issues. Yeah.
is there any indication of when things might be normal again, or just none?
You mean back to in-person meetings?
Yeah, no?
No, I think, we have to get to, the city is defined like 4 phases of restarting.
Okay.
And we're in phase 2 right now. We need to be in phase 4 before we're back to any hope of public in-person meetings. And even then, with social distancing and so forth, which would be virtually impossible in our normal room. So we'd have to find other venues to support the meeting. So I think it's going to be a while myself.
Well, things considered, I think this was okay.
Yeah.
Better than nothing.
Could have been worse.
Yep. Yeah, it works pretty well.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Alex, do I
Thank
need to
you.
sign anything?
Yes, but I'll probably send that to you. It probably won't be until Monday. But I'll send
Okay.
you things to sign.
Yeah. Is City Hall, is 2 George open?
On a very
Yes.
limited basis.
Yeah. In any event, if you want me to swing by next week and sign, I can do that too. Just let me know.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you, guys. Have a good
All right.
night.